talk shooting shots, they just want me to fade. But my game made when I'm getting buckets today. Crossover, pull up, bet you fall for the hezzy. Game 7 prime time is butterflies on your belly, now can you do it? Folding under the pressure, boy, can you do it? If you going, show 'em who better. Don't let the game slip and don't get caught in the lights. Crown me, yeah, Jordan taking off on the
Baby,
flight.
give me all the rings right now, we the champions. We the champions. I do my thing right now and it can be done. They said it can't be done. Give me all the rings right now, we the champions. We the champions. I do my thing right now and it can't be done. They said it can't be done.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It's your boy AB, and welcome to another installment of the OpenGym Podcast. We're back, episode 11. I know it's been a little minute. I've been on a little bit of a hiatus, just getting some things, laying some groundwork for quite a few things that's coming up real soon. But I'm so stoked and I'm happy to be back again with another episode. It should be a fun episode today. I'm just happy to be back overall. There's a lot of things that have been going on in sports, a lot of things that's going on over here with me and everything like that. So I'm just ready to dive into it. And today we have a very special guest with us today, the very own Sean Barnard, everybody. This is fellow staff member at PhiladelphiaSportsNetwork.com, but also he is now a new staff writer, associate, whatever you want to call it, over at Clutch Sports Media, and then also one half of the dynamic duo of the PickSwap podcast, which is now, what is it called now? PickSwap Media now? There's a whole thing. What's going on, Sean, man? How you been, man?
What's going on, AB? I'm happy to be on. Appreciate you having me. Yeah, got a lot going on. PickSwap Media now, writing all over the place and diving into the sports world. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. Excited to get talking about the end of that Sixers season and everything else going on in the sports world right now.
Yeah, man, I'm glad and happy you can join us tonight. It's been a while. I think it's our first. No, it's just we've been on here before, but since then it's been quite a while, and a lot has happened. I know we've talked through over the years, but Open Gym is a little different, where you let your hair down a little bit and just talk. And I want to get into the sports with you, but get like how you really feel about it. I know we have a certain way that we have to write and portray things, because being a media member. But we have the Open Gym, man. Anything goes in here, man. We're gonna start right there, what you started off with the Sixers. That's probably the biggest conversation, especially living where we live on this side in this area. What's going on, man? Eliminated 6 games against the Miami Heat. We know he had a lot. Joel Embiid injured, James Harden, the role players, man. Just give me your overall look of, what the Sixers were like going down the stretch prior to getting eliminated.
Yeah, I think the last time that we were on talking together was right after the James Harden trade with all the vibes high and everything there. So we got to see that play out. Unfortunately, did not end as we were all hoping. I mean, it shouldn't be surprising the way it happened when thinking about everything, but it sure is frustrating to see it. And I mean, the Embiid injury obviously hurt a ton. Missing those first 2 games and pretty much handing those to the Heat was too much to come back from. It was frustrating to just kind of see the lack of effort and the lack of the way that series went down. But really, it was a roster failure. This team was missing the proper pieces to complement Harden and Embiid, who I still think, and Maxey, are the long-term future of this team. So there's still plenty of reason for hope, but the Sixers are definitely at a crucial stretch where they need to retool immediately and need to make a ton of moves this offseason to keep that championship window open.
So I totally agree with what you're saying right there, and thanks everyone for tapping in. It's the Open Gym episode 11. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel, stay up to date with everything that's going on here. And I wanted to touch on that, just dive in a little bit into the regular ending of the season and the playoffs. So I'm just gonna give you my side of things, how I looked at it, and you let me know how you feel. So I look at the team, how it's presently constructed. I totally understand the bench. I understand it. It's not a great bench whatsoever. I totally understand it. I got a little bit of flack about the whole Joel Embiid and my expectations of the guy. Do I think this team's going to ultimately win the championship? No, I never had that. I knew it was a slight chance, but the percentage of it really happening, it was slight. So the expectation wasn't as high as others, I would believe. But I just still expected my superstar player in Joel Embiid to get us past the second round. I know Joel. Everyone loves Joel Embiid. I love him. Like Joel Embiid, like I defended him to forever, but I still feel like he should have still been able, broke face, thumb and all. He should have still been able to get them past the second round. Looking at the Heat right now against the Boston Celtics, I think we should have went past that. I mean, what are your thoughts when people talk about Joel Embiid in that light as far as his expectation as what he should have did with this team?
I mean, it's clear, like, when you break down the stats and look at it, that there is kind of a decline when you look at it from regular season to postseason. But I don't necessarily feel that way when watching him. And, like, the impact that he brings goes beyond the stat sheet on both sides of the ball. You just saw from the first 2 games of him not being there to then the back-to-back games, which they won to tie the series at 2, just the night and day difference in the entire team. That's all a credit to Embiid, but it's also a discredit to the rest of the roster and the guys that aren't capable of stepping up. When you look at like these teams remaining in the playoffs, and now granted we're down to 4, but I would even extend this to top 8 teams, the other 7 of the top 8 that the Sixers were in. You look at their 1 through 13 on their bench, and I think every playable player is pretty much better than anyone on the Sixers bench. You look at Duncan Robinson on the Heat, who isn't even getting time on a regular basis and didn't play like the entirety of the Sixers series. He would be the Sixers' best bench player if he was in Philadelphia. So that right there, to me, is like a major indication of where it's lacking. And for a guy, I understand like the wanting the star to like drag a team to past rounds, and like that is somewhat of the expectation when you're that level of player. But it really is difficult, and the way the Heat like forcefully wanted anyone else to beat them, and there just wasn't anybody capable of doing that. Like even the baskets Embiid did put in were through double and triple coverage, and he was being doubled without the ball even getting to him, and it changed everything. And now there were some tactical adjustments that could have been better performed to ease the pressure, but like it to me, I just feel like the drop off between like the first and second team is so drastic on the Sixers team, and it's been a consistent issue for several years. And until that fixes itself, I feel like this isn't a top to bottom championship roster, and that's something that I need to see this offseason.
So speaking of that, knowing that it's not a top to bottom roster that's completed, I mean, like I said, don't get me wrong. I love Embiid, and I do have that expectation of him. Should have been at least the second round. I feel like great players should be able to lift their team past the second round. And you look at even just Sixers past players like Allen Iverson and guys like that who can LeBron James. I mean, when you want to be up in that upper echelon of greatness, I feel like you should be able to at least do that. But again, I don't dismiss the fact that the bench was terrible. Coaching obviously was an issue again when it comes to this particular series that we just seen with the Heat, where it's like there was no. I don't know if he had a plan or he just was getting out coached. I don't want to believe he just didn't have anything else left. But I mean, speak about the coaching. Like, is Doc Rivers just going to escape any of this, or is it just going to be solely just because he didn't have a bench? Because I didn't really see a plan as far as what he was going to do to switch it up to actually put his team, his players in better positions to win.
Yeah, I think I was happier with Doc's performance than the general public with it. I thought specifically in the first 2 games without Embiid, I mean, realistically, the Sixers did not have the horses to run, and they obviously lost both games, but I saw more creativity and at least attempts at changing things up than I'd seen from him through pretty much his whole tenure here. So to me, that was a little bit refreshing. But in terms of like when Embiid returned, this has been another problem throughout Embiid's whole career, but specifically with Doc, is I feel like so much of the game plan is like give it to Embiid and watch. And like it makes it more difficult because he is primarily a post player, and like you see that on teams like the Celtics with Jason Tatum and like Luka Doncic on the Mavs and guys that are obviously capable of it. It does bring a different beast when Embiid like he certainly is capable of being a guy that can handle the ball on perimeter, create his own shot, but that's not where he's best. That's not where he's best served. And obviously, spacing is the name of the game for the Sixers team. It's been something they've been trying to improve on throughout, something that I do think Harden deserves a ton of credit for improving his presence here. The way he draws a double still 30 feet out from the basket is a super helpful to Embiid. But there has to be just better ways to like creating screens off balls to create mismatches for him, or movements and cuts to create better opportunities for him to get in the post where his money's made. And especially when we talk about the thumb injury, that had to be like the number one key, because we're talking about a guy who like he was shooting knuckleballs at times when he went up for his jumper. And it's like that's just not the Joel Embiid we know. So there needed to be a greater emphasis for that. And again, this is all easier said than done because the opposing teams are thinking the exact same thing we're talking through right now. But I just like, it would have been nice if there's more of kind of a set scheme to get easy looks for your star player rather than just kind of giving it to him and hoping he can do it.
And that's why I say that, because like I said, looking just at the game, especially like that last one, game 6 itself, it was just like, and I did see the wrinkles that you speak of earlier when Embiid wasn't there. But like you said, they it's a very Embiid heavy driven offense, essentially, like that. It's not a lot of movement that goes on when it comes to this offense. It's literally just stand there, and to me, I feel like that played a part in it as well, knowing that your big man is 85% essentially out there playing, and you didn't give him right, exactly, and you didn't really give him any help. You know, like you said, and it's crazy. I even pointed it out. They were using the zone was like probably one of the trickiest things that Doc couldn't get over, and I was just looking at how far they were extending. You spoke about it, going at James Harden 30 feet away from the basket. You have so much open vacant space in the middle of the floor, but the offense always had Embiid calling for the ball at the top of the key, where it's like you get him to the middle, get the ball, keep it high, you got a shot. If they come to you, you got to pass back. It creates so many different elements to the offense that can be used, instead of just giving them to the top of the key and everyone move and look at your 7'2", 280-pound center trying to make a move on 3 people. So stuff like that is what causes you in series, and obviously it did. He just couldn't get over the hump. And then just speaking about all that, and you said it earlier, you mentioned it. It's a lot of questions. It's a lot of different things that's going to have to be answered this offseason when it comes to contracts, when it comes to who stays, who goes, trades, signings, all those things. And then on top of it, you had your big man tweeting out last night, Miami Heat needs a star and all this stuff like that. So that it's a lot going on in the Sixers. So this offseason, what do you believe is the best route for the Sixers team to take going forward to be a real title contender?
I think everybody gets too lost in like the star hunting aspect and the big name splash. Daryl Morey certainly included in this. Yep. For me, the best route to improving this roster is a straight up retooling of all the complementary pieces. And that starts with flipping Tobias Harris, who is coming off one of the best stretches of play throughout his career in that playoff series. I think Tobias gets a bad rap in terms of he was asked to do a lot of what he's not comfortable doing, and did it at a fairly high level. The catch and shoot, the spacing on the floor, quick decisions, serving as the best defender on opposing players in a way that he has not throughout his whole career. So I do think he gets a bad rap, but there's just no getting around how much that contract clogs up the cap space. Yeah. And that has to be moved for pretty much anything for them to be done. So I think flipping Tobias for a couple complimentary role players. Reggie Bullock's a guy on Dallas Mavericks that I think will be terrific, and a guy that I think is a decent target there. And beyond that, just top to bottom from the bench. Like there has to be getting guys that can space the floor, great 3-point shooters, guy that have like a competitive nature to them, and just building that around Harden, Maxey, and Embiid. To me, I think that's enough to compete for a championship. We hear all the time how championships are won and lost with the margins. To me, these are the margins the Sixers are losing on that other teams are capitalizing. So I think and even when you look around the league, like there isn't that missing star out there. Like there maybe Bradley Beal's available, maybe Zach LaVine's available. I'm not even confident either one of them are. And beyond that, it's like there's nobody worth mortgaging such a significant part of the salary and not just like fully developing this entire team. So to me, it's all about upgrading the complementary pieces.
And I'm with that. I tell you this. Well, first, so it sounds like to you, Tobias Harris is a must. Like without a doubt, he's not an untouchable piece, or more so, he's for it's foreclosure that he's out the door for you. Like he has to be moved. If I'm not safe to say that when it comes to you.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
okay.
I like Tobias too, but unfortunately, just looking at the logistics of it, he's got to be moved.
And it is. Some people, it's hard for people to say that because they try to throw those numbers. Because you know me, I wasn't the biggest Tobias fan, so you know me. So when it came to him, it was pretty easy for me to be moved. But there are people out there that's like, oh, he was the only one that gave you this, that gave you that. But I don't. People got to realize the grand scheme of things and how much talent this team needs, and he holds so much of the cap where it's
Right.
like he has to be moved because it frees up so much money for us to be able to do something. Like you said, bring in someone like a Reggie Bullock, and Gary Harris is another person that'll be out there as well that might not command a lot of money. So for me, when it comes to the Sixers, who is untouchable, who's untouchable, and who can just get out of here, no matter who goes. And then is there any other targets out there that you look like the Sixers could use when it comes to strengthening his bench?
So I mean, to start off with, I think Embiid, Harden, and Maxey are the only three like key guys. I think Maxey's the kind of question mark in that, and Harden, there's obviously the contract question mark.
So you signed in James Harden?
I think you have to.
What's your number? What's your number?
My ideal, I would probably say like 4 year. I'm gonna go 4 year, 135 mil would be mine. So a little over 30 mil a year.
Which 135.
Yeah, okay. A little over 30 mil a year. It's interesting because from him, he's talked about being willing to take less money to help the team, that kind of thing. Yeah. A, it's much easier to stand up there and say that, and another thing when the contract's in front of you. And B, I don't even know what less money means to James Harden. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. That's kind of the biggest chip in that, and I think a lot depends on that. So, but in my mind, I think like you were pretty married to James Harden when the trade happened, and I see no way of him not coming back to some extent next year.
I absolutely agree. Like you said, James Harden, you said the red nail on the head for me to sit there and say, who knows what James Harden less is, though? Like it might not be 40, but we still talking 35, 36. Yeah. Like, who knows? We probably thinking 15, 18, 20. No, he's not going that low. All right, so no one, only those three. You believe James Harden's coming back. So basically everyone else is like, if there's needed, they can go. So Thibault, Reed, like you said, Shake, Korkmaz, all those guys. Even Nang, even if he has to go, because I think he signed again. And then you still got Danny on the books as well.
Mm-hmm. Danny's interesting because his contract's not guaranteed. I think when they signed him, the intention was for him to be traded this offseason. It's a very trade-friendly contract, but you are kind of doing him dirty just in the circumstances, and it really is a bummer how he went out. Matisse, I would like to say, is probably even higher than Tobias on my must-trade list in terms of I just think he's a flawed basketball player in terms of, like, we talked so much after the Ben Simmons trade about, like, how much better the spacing would be. Teams gave Thibault absolute zero respect defensively these playoffs. Like, the Raptors and Heat did not even acknowledge he was out there. It was straight up 5v4 basketball. Absolutely. And, like, when we talked about that with Ben Simmons at least was a capable ball handler and passer and all these things. Thibault was basically a zero offensively. And, like, I don't see any progress in terms of that changing. And sure, you can kind of squint and look at like, he's a better cutter, or look at his fast break and that kind of thing. But like realistically, I don't see him ever developing to the stage where he can be a like capable postseason player. And I also think like he's got enough of a unique and weird talent that like he definitely still has some attraction around the league. So I think packaging him with something is enough to get a decent play in return, and that's something more it should be at pretty near the top of his list.
So I Thibault, that is, I have a friend. I'm laughing because I have a friend. that literally Thibault, like he irks him so much. Like when we watching games, when I get a certain text during a certain type, as soon as I see Thibault on the floor and he does something, I know that text that just came through is my friend. I look at it. His first thing is Thibault is so terrible. Like he hates him so much. He always say, because it was the debate early on when trade season was who's untouchables, who can go, and Thibault was one of the ones people were saying was untouchable. He brings it up. I was ridiculed when people said he was untouchable. he stinks. It's just that's why I'm laughing, because like it's really a section of the people that's out there that feel that same sentiment, where it's just like, I see nothing positive that can come from him being on this team when we need so much scoring, so much scoring on the offensive end. And it was sad that even during this series, the one thing he was good at, he wasn't even doing that effectively in defending. So it made it even worse. Like you said, unplayable after a while.
Yeah, he dropped 10 minutes per game from regular season postseason, which is a massive drop for a guy, and pretty telling based on the circumstances. And also, like, defensively, like, he's such a unique player in terms of like the long arms, but like the way that he defends is pretty flawed on a team basis. Like it just like not how you teach defense. And when you watch like these successful teams in the playoffs, the Celtics and Heat are the prime like targets in terms of like great team defense. Yeah, everything's so connected. Every guy is so keyed in on what everyone else is doing, rotating everything. That's like not how Matisse defends. He's pretty much like you throw him at a guy and he just follows him around and does his thing. But like the way he just lets guys like get in front of him like is disruptive to the rest of the defensive unit. And Embiid's a guy I think he makes look bad often in terms of like Thibault will let a guy get in front as he's driving the lane to try and poke or block from behind. Embiid steps up and Embiid's man scores often. And like that's something that like I would so much rather a guy who just like straight up defends and stays in front of a guy the way it's taught. And I think like that's more important when you're looking at defensive aspects. So as great as he is and as talented as he is, I don't think it translates to team success enough.
I absolutely agree, because that's something that's yelled a lot in my group chats as well. Like, at first I thought it was just a quick little like thing that he does when someone gets by him, that he still has that ability to recover. But as you look, he's literally letting them run past him because he can try to do it. Like that puts his big man in a undefensible position, because now he's stepping up and you got the center he's guarding in that dunker spot ready to catch a alley-oop. So Thibault is definitely someone on my radar that can go. I had some promise for him. I felt like he could have been something, but when you literally just can't give me 2 to 3 threes a game and struggle just to get one, and you can't drive, you're not pat, like it's a no for me. So staying in that realm, a lot has happened, and they eliminated. There were things said. Joel Embiid still talking about Jimmy, things of that nature like that. Should have never let him go. I did find it a little odd that it was like after losing in the playoffs in the second round again, like you're crying about another man. But I also understand his frustration, so I want to ask that to you. Like, I know some blame is upon Embiid because he's the star player. Then obviously you got the tweets today talking about he wants to be the Heat need a star, everyone going crazy thinking he wants out. But I look at it as more of a sign to management, letting him know his frustrations, letting him know where he's at. He was trolling. We all know he was trolling. Obviously just to poke fun, but I also still believe that it was a message to management, like, listen, this is the problem of my career. I want to build. You gave me Harden, you sold me on Harden being the old Harden, and he's not that anymore. Like, I want to win. But then you have the other side of think is Joel Embiid again, just with his shenanigans, crying. You need to lead your team. You need to get them over the hump. Where do you lie when it comes to being both sides of that fence?
Yeah, I mean, first off, he absolutely knows what he's doing. Like he's
Absolutely.
probably one of the best Twitter fingers in the NBA, and just like he knew he was stirring the pot. He knew there was going to be a reaction, and like that's part of why I love him. I like how he has a personality. I like how he's like down to earth in that aspect of like being able to troll and being able to be a little bit of like an internet aspect. And he's definitely like gotten way more mature about it as his career has progressed. But I also think he's at the point where this is the most frustrated that he's been with the Sixers organization. In his post game interview or exit interview, he mentioned how he can get traded 4 separate times, and they were all like passing references, not anything serious. But it's still like I don't even know why you're bringing that up right now. And,
right? Yeah.
like from his perspective, like he's absolutely in the prime of his career, playing some of the best basketball of anyone on the planet. And I think it has to be frustrating that for 5 straight seasons, they failed to make it past the conference semifinals. And I mean, looking at this season specifically, like James Harden scored less points than Ben Simmons did in the second half of the
Terrible.
season.
Terrible.
Like, if that's going to be like the guy, like, and granted, who knows what Harden was dealing with, hamstring, whatever, but there's still not really an excuse for it. He didn't attempt a 2-point shot since 8 minutes left in the first quarter of that game. Like, it was just sitting out and shooting threes, and like that's not the complimentary piece that like everyone was sold on, was hoping for. So I do think there's a call to action from Embiid that it needs to be like kicked into action now, and he's not going to be around forever. Like, this is a guy that we've talked so long about, like how his window can change so quickly, but
just
like
one fall.
Right. And as much as we say that, I don't think it's like truly sets in enough of like how important every season is, and kind of wasting this year, like on Daryl Morey to not do anything other than get Harden, not to get complementary pieces that can help contend right now. It's frustrating. So I get where he's coming from if he is frustrated with the organization.
So what do you lie with the people that sit there and say, how do you feel about the people that sit there and say it's just Joel Embiid again, immature, not ready to lead, greats don't do this. They don't sit there and gall over another team that just beat you. Like what do you believe, or what do you think about that when people say things like that?
I think the Jimmy Butler thing's so unique, just in terms of, obviously we know the story of him being traded to the Sixers. Him and Jimmy are like legitimate friends off the court, and guys that like are cool with each other, hang with each other, and that kind of thing. Which, like, to give props to your friend, I don't think is a big deal. And also, like, it is very frustrating. You have to think from Embiid's perspective about like there's so much hearsay about how that went down, but the bottom line was that the Sixers organization did not prioritize Butler at that time, and many organizations would have done wrongfully for sure, how things have played out. But many organizations would have done the same thing in terms of their number 1 overall pick, and Ben Simmons has so much promise if he wasn't directly getting along with this guy. But
do you
like,
do you not to cut you off, but do you believe other organizations would have still went on and made that same decision versus keeping Ben and Jimmy?
At that point in time, yes. This was still like Ben's second or third year in the league, where before he had really started to regress and like the shooting numbers go down, there was still plenty of promise. There was a point in time where Ben Simmons was a premier prospect and regarded as a next LeBron type guy. So being still at that stage, I think it is. Obviously, revisionist history, and looking at it now, it's pretty clear like that was not the right call. I also do feel a little bad for Tobias Harris for catching the stray shot from after the game from Jimmy.
For Jimmy,
yeah. So
Tobias over me.
Yeah, exactly. Which was like, Jimmy, but nobody in the universe is agreeing that Tobias is a better basketball player. That's not at all what anybody said. But I think it's a unique situation because of all that tied. Obviously, like, it's not great to hear, but I don't have a major problem with it.
All right, well, I mean, let me say this. I have there's a within that other side of the argument, there are some valid points as far as what I take from it, as far as even though the tweet itself didn't bother me like at all, because literally once I read it, I understood it was a troll job, and at the most it was a message to the organization to like, don't waste my time. But also the leadership aspect that a great player has, I still feel like he struggles struggles with the balance with being able to do that and not tend to lean to his more fun ways, I would say. And again, I don't have no problem with what he does on Twitter and stuff like that. I understand what the space of Twitter is for. It's for the type of stuff that he does on there. Like no one on Twitter takes most things like that seriously unless you just a crazy person, essentially, like that. If you take Twitter that seriously, but there's certain things that I feel like a great player, and what makes a player have greatness. I do believe he still struggles with those areas, and there's evidence at times. For me, on the court at times, and then obviously off the court. But we're gonna keep on moving because not only with the tweet, James Harden shook up Twitter world for a little bit the other day. A good friend of mine, pro basketball trainer by the name of Chuck Ellis of Chuck Ellis Workouts, based in Philadelphia. He was currently in Houston this past couple of days ago with James Harden, working out with him. He posted a little video on Instagram and his Insta stories, and it's just the ending of a practice. James Harden there, he's looking, the body pause is looking, fit and trimmed, and look like he's getting in better shape. And I look at that, and I look at it like, all right, I'm not sitting here expecting James Harden to come back and just shock the world and just drop 35, 36, 40 points every night, but I'm just looking at it more of a, can we get a better version of James Harden the next year with a full off season to rehab, not rehab rather, and just be able to just train and work on his game, which he couldn't be able to do within the last couple of years dealing with his hamstring injury. Do you kind of lean that way, or do you look at that a James Harden next year differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of both. I think there's still plenty left in the tank for James Harden. Like, he's 32 years old. Like, that's not ancient by NBA standards by any way. Chris Paul is 5-6 years older than him and still doing his thing at a pretty high level. But to that point, Harden absolutely has to make changes to his game. Like, he's not a guy that can just like blow past guys anymore. He had under 1 point per possession on isolation, which has been foreign to him throughout his entire career. He has to make adaptation to his game. He's got to get more comfortable off the catch and shoot. He has to create some semblance of a mid-range game. That's been the anti kind of Morey ball for quite some time, but he needs to get that back. And that's something that's crucial. If he can look in the mirror and accept these things, I think he can make his career and extend it for a couple of years. He's not the James Harden of Houston and won't be again, but he's still a very useful basketball player, still one of the highest IQ basketball players across the entire league, and he's still helpful for the team. I think he fits with Joel Embiid. I think he fits with what the Sixers' long-term goals are. So I'm not as worried as I think some people. Now, granted, I would love if he was capable of more. I would love if he still was that Houston James Harden. But like the player that he still is, I think is something that adds to the Sixers team and somebody that they should be excited about, assuming that they do re-sign him.
So I'm gonna hit you with this because we're gonna hit the other parts of the NBA. I'm here again with Philly Sports Network, Clutch Sports, and host of PickSwap podcast. Sean Barnard with us tonight, joining in OpenGym, just talking. Obviously, have to start with the Sixers, being our home teams. There's a lot going on. We're going to talk about that and see what's going on. And I know he's tapped in and he's very knowledgeable what's going on with the team and his thoughts and his analysis. So we're just going to end it off with the Sixers with just one little quick, you have to be a long soliloquy, just a quick answer. So we mentioned the star hunting early on. There are three candidates names out there, not candidates, but names that are out there. Two more realistically, and one a little more far-fetched. But all things are equal, and you're able to get any of these players just via trading. You just be able to get them whatever you give that team. They give you the player. Bill, Levine, Donovan Mitchell. List me 1 through 3 from your best to your least.
This is with keeping Harden.
Yes, with Harden.
In addition to Harden. So first off, I will say if it involves trading Maxey, I would be off on all these three.
Let that be known.
Yeah. If there is a way to swing it and keep them, I think I'm going Donovan Mitchell 1, Beal 2, and Beal 2, Levine 3. And I flip-flopped a little bit on these guys, but I think it's also like going to be an interesting how for Beal and Mitchell specifically, how they will fit into being not the primary option. And the Sixers could use like some scoring firepower in that regard, but it's also like it's not the easiest thing to ask two guys who have been the absolute centerpiece of an organization for years to come in and fit in with Embiid and Harden, and who are two pretty legitimate stars around this league. So I as much as it's like an appeal to like join this team, it's also not the cleanest fit for anybody. So it's not easy, but that's how I would rank the three of them.
And it's been a struggle. So I'm gonna give you my list, but I gotta tell you this. Because I struggle with the first one a lot. My number one a lot. So, and you brung it up. You brung fit. Now, just overall, just who I would want because of the youth, and you can continue on with him and build even after Embiid is gone, is Donovan Mitchell. So it'd be Donovan Mitchell, Bill, Levine for me in that regard. Now, believe it or not, when I think about fit, and I went back and just watched, just different highlights of both of the players, I feel like Bradley Beal is more of a fit, and this is why. Out of all those three, the game of the catch and shoot that we spoke about, he has that. Just looking back, and I don't have the numbers in front of me as far as how good he's at it, but just seeing him do it flowed. He did a lot of pin down screens coming from the baseline, wrapping up to the 3-point line, spot up jump shot, stuff like that, which that's something we need. But then also he's versatile, whereas like if he needs to break somebody down and get a bucket, he could do that also. So I just wanted to throw that out there as far as my list when it came to that. So we just, like you said, I know the time is well spent. I appreciate you, man. We just going to hit a couple more points. Like I said, we've been in the heat of the battle. I know the Sixers is gone. We got a lot to discuss when it comes to the off season, but we're going to jump right into the NBA. And right before, one more thing about Joel Embiid, second all team. All NBA team, snubbed or should have been or just right?
Yeah, by the definition, I get it, but my frustration is
what definition
of like these standardized positions and him.
Okay,
like I don't think it's a snub of Jokic being first team over him in that regard. I do think it's crazy that they're still holding like the positional standards, and like for a guy that was universally regarded as one of the best three players in basketball for the second straight year, and to not make the first team is insane to me, especially we're talking about an era where basketball's become increasingly positionless, and like there's just not the same like standards. And also if you add to the fact like Jokic and Embiid could absolutely play on the court together if they were hypothetically on this team. So to me, it doesn't make any sense why he has to be on the second team. I do think there should be a change with that. But it's frustrating. I do feel bad for Embiid in the aspect of like to have these 2 straight years of ridiculous performance, leading the league in scoring this year, being dominant on both ends of the court, and all he's walking away from are 2 second-round exits and 2 all NBA second team. That sucks. It really does. And
runner up twice the MVP. Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest thing. He should have been first, because I don't know how you the runner up to MVP and not first team. I don't know how you the first center since Shaq to score over 30 points and win a scoring title. Not MVP, first team All NBA. But I mean, again, I understand the position aspect. I absolutely need to get rid of it altogether for sure. These playoffs right now, what you think? I got some mixed emotions. Me personally, it's been a bit of a snoozer for me. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you have moments like the Wiggins dunk on Luka, stuff like that. But I mean, I feel like the better rounds was the earlier ones, round 1 and 2. Seriously, what you think is going on in playoffs so far? How you like it?
Yeah, definitely. The first 2 rounds were pretty fun, and then it's kind of turned into a blowout fest for the conference finals, which has been disappointing. I think it's going to come down to Warriors Celtics pretty clear. I think the last night specifically, I think the Celtics made it clear that they just kind of have a different class that the Heat just can't quite match in terms of talent. And I'm glad the Mavs won over the Warriors, but that team just has too much firepower. And I think my ultimate prediction for the rest of the playoffs, I do think it's another Warriors championship. And it's been impressive how quickly that team has retooled and got healthy. Jordan Poole is absolutely awesome. The development of him has been crazy to watch. But the Celtics are a tough defensive team, and that's going to be one matchup to watch. But overall, I have been disappointed with just how many blowouts that there have been.
Absolutely, and it that's why it frustrates me even more why the Sixers didn't continue on. But I will leave that alone. But I absolutely agree. The last game last night, actually, with the Celtics, it was just like that was like, okay, you guys, we're done with these guys. We're not playing with them anymore.
Yeah.
My name is Jason Tatum. My name is Jaylen Brown. Move out the way and let me show you. And when they're first of all, you got Jaylen Brown hitting threes the way he was doing down the stretch is like just forget it. Especially when you have a team like the Heat where their 3-pointers is only predicated from role players. And Jimmy ain't shooting a lot of threes, so he can give you all the 2-pointers he gonna give you. You ain't gonna be able to do nothing with that. But the Celtics just when they are together and they're locked in defensively, overall, this is gonna be a tough. I feel like that's who's gonna meet in the finals. You're gonna have Golden State and you're gonna have the Celtics, but I feel like the Celtics have a real shot at that. I don't want to go too far up there yet because they still got to get there. But I think I'm going to give the Celtics more. And I hate that. You know, I am a Philadelphia Sixers fan, but I love basketball. And I think Celtics have more of a shot than when people will give them a chance for. I mean, Western Conference, Luka, can he do it, LeBron? Or is that essentially over for you? Like, there's no way they're coming back beating the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they maybe could steal one more, but I even think that's unlikely. I don't, as great as this Mavs team has looked and how much they've kind of already overperformed this season, I just don't think they have enough to win that many against this talented Warriors team. And the Celtics Heat, I also think the Heat don't have enough to win another game in this. This series has sucked from the aspect of like I don't want either of these teams to win. Like both the Heat and Celtics, these guys, I hate rooting for either one.
Both
of
them,
yeah. So that aspect of this has definitely been rough in the playoffs.
I agree. It's like we don't have too many ties with the Western Conference. It's just whoever we get. But it's like we got the Heat who just beat us. So I don't care who you are. You never want the team that beat you to go on and win. And then you have the Boston freaking Celtics, probably one of our most rivaled fan base team, everything when it comes to this city. Boston in general. Like I'm talking about Boston, not even just the team. Like we hate Boston, but one of them is going to the NBA championship. Is like, oh my Lord, please no. So I want to just continue on with these NBA playoffs. So we pretty much know who you're going to finish. I feel like the Mavericks can steal another game, and depending on how that go, like they can push it. They can push it to 7. If I believe where Luka really is, essentially like that, he literally gonna have to drag his team essentially, but he can do it. The Heat, I'm with you. Mm-hmm. It's done. Like last night was like they went down swinging. It was like it was over.
Yeah.
What have you learned in these NBA playoffs when it comes to just different players? The future of the NBA, because you know we got a lot of guys you name like Chris Paul, LeBron James, you know, Carmelo. Those guys are starting to shift out. What is these playoffs and just this NBA season? Have you learned from this essentially?
Well, first off, I would say like it should be a lesson for a lot of people that the skill set that translate in the playoffs is not always the same as the regular season, and each roster decision is so important to a team to being like a connected and a real championship caliber team. Like I think like the Celtics and Heat, I think is a more specific example of this, but the Mavericks as well and Golden State, I put in a little different tier just because of the star power that they have and the way Steph, Clay, and Jordan Poole just kind of open up everything. But looking at like these three teams, they just have guys that bring out the best in their stars, complement them. And I think it works both ways in terms of role players and stars. Guys like Grant Williams being able to defend Giannis, and Grant Williams has been a masterful part of this Celtics team.
Absolutely. I don't even know where he came from.
Yeah. Tennessee product. He's the man. But I did not think he had this much in it. And so I think to me, like, hitting on the guys that like are able to like tie your team together is essential. And I think like while so much is like thrown on like the big names or the future, like every roster decision is so important. There's such little room for error. So I think that's something that is important to keep in mind for the postseason.
Absolutely. And in the future of the game, I know for a while we had a couple drafts that went by. It's a lot of young cats that are good. A lot of, I mean, look at Cleveland. Prime example. Look at the Wolves. You got Edwards down there.
Yeah.
What's the name? Halliburton. You got him. Obviously the Grizzlies. Like Zion still hasn't came back. Like the NBA is in good shape. I mean, what do you think about the product and what's going on in the NBA? I know it's a lot of mixed emotions. A lot of the older generation that JJ Redick argue with every morning, essentially, don't like the way it's moving because you have a whole culture behind it now when it comes to fashion, when it comes to music, when it comes to just personalities and how they want to portray themselves, marketing, everything that comes along with it. How do you feel about the state of the NBA in general and going forward with you got the big guys like LeBron and them guys on their way out the door in the matter of years?
Yeah, I think it's cool that all these guys kind of see a bigger picture and appreciate just beyond basketball. As far as the game itself, there's certainly been great changes in recent year. We talk about the prevalence of 3-pointers, and I mean, like the Mavericks specifically are pretty much relying on. They've tossed up over 43s in every game this series, averaging over 41 point something. Just the way they like prioritize that, which is just crazy volume for that. So the game's definitely changed. What beyond it's definitely changed, but I think it's cool how every guy has a little bit of a different voice, a little bit of a different swagger or feel to themselves so that they're able to show. And the game is in good hands moving forward. There's a lot of young talent that's very capable of having the torch handed down to them.
Totally, yeah, I agree. Favorite player right now in the NBA?
I mean, outside of Embiid, I'll give a kind of a strange shout out, but just a guy I love to watch is Jordan Poole. I just think he's masterful. I love the way he just moves around, and he's a very underrated kind of guy, but I love watching him play.
Baby Steph, for sure. They grooming him up right. I like that answer. John, like, and Edwards is like two of my guys, and like I throw Darius Garland in there as well. I just like his game. Like Darius Garland's game is just like, it reminds me of Kyrie essentially. Smooth handles, get to his shot, everything like that. I love that. Yeah. Obviously I love Maxey, but just Darius Garland, I just love his game. It's so smooth for him to be so young. Like, I love that about him. Real quick, KD, strained relationship, management with the Nets. What's going on there? They don't want to re-sign Kyrie. KD obviously is not going to be happy when they don't re-sign him. Like, I thought they had the better end of the trade. They got Ben Simmons. Shouldn't all this have been better now once he got there? Shouldn't it have?
Yeah, it sounds like a mess over there. I mean, there's been so many like combustible personalities in that locker room for several years now that I think that to some extent, like this is just bound to happen. The Kyrie thing's the biggest chip that needs to fall. It sounds like the Nets are skeptical about signing him to a long-term deal. They've talked about trying to implement a strategy of like basically making it so he only gets paid when he does play, which I personally think is reasonable. But with the all the behind the scenes stuff with Kyrie in terms of like missing days for personal reason, the injury history, the vaccine stuff, there is like a lot of factors that go along with him that isn't the same for all NBA players. So it'll be interesting to see how that's handled. If Kyrie goes, I think it kind of all unravels. So the organization's in a tough spot, and I think they pretty much got to bite the bullet and pay him. But it's crazy because from a skill aspect, there's no doubts about Kyrie Irving. But
absolutely,
from all the other that go with him, there's definitely reason to be concerned. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Personally, I love sitting back and watching this Nets team combust. So it's all good in my mind.
Absolutely, but it's like you said, Kevin Durant is there only because of Kyrie Irving. So it's like they got to understand that. Like you said, they're probably going to be forced to trade him, or if not, everyone's going. And then you have Ben Simmons sitting there like Will Smith in the last episode with nothing in the living room. He's just looking around. Like, I mean, because essentially that's what it's going to be. Because if you want Kevin Durant to be there in Brooklyn, Kyrie is going to have to be there. Now, I don't know how much they can tweak when it comes to the contract, because obviously, a lot, probably some CBA things that goes on when it comes to that as well. But I mean, that's gonna be a tough situation. Obviously, as a Sixers fan, I would love for it to just blow up and now they ain't got no picks. They don't have any players. They don't have they about to lose all their free agents. But Seth Curry, Drummond gone, Bruce Brown gone. They can't pay anybody because Kyrie. But I mean, it is what it is. It's going to be a fun, very, very, very fun off season. I really see that already with all the interchangeable parts that's coming along. And we're gonna be there for along the ride, man. Hopefully, we see a lot that goes on. We can write about it, talk about it, have more episodes and things about it, man. I know you're gonna be right tapped in with it, man. So tell everybody where to find you at, what's going on, and over on your side of things, and all your work, man.
Yeah, so you can drop a follow for me on Twitter at Sean_Bernard1. You can check out all my written work on Philly Sports Network and Clutch Points. Philly Sports Network, I just dropped my Sixers ideal off season, so give that a look and give your thoughts on that. And then for Clutch Points, I cover all NBA and NFL content across the national scale, so you can give that a look as well. And then check out PickSwap Media as well. You can drop a subscribe on YouTube. We got plenty of new podcasts popping out of there. You can check out me and James PickSwap podcast for all our Sixers content. We had the first episode of 215 Scoop, which gave some Eagles talk that just dropped tonight, and a little more to come. So stay posted and stay tapped in and check me out wherever.
Hey, man, y'all heard it here first, man. I appreciate you for stepping into the gym, just talking NBA, talking Sixers, giving your analysis and your thoughts on all that. And y'all heard all this information. Make sure y'all go follow. And everyone that's here in Open Gym, man, thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching. Make sure you drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe, do it all, man. It's your boy AB. We appreciate you, Sean, and we on out of here. Yes, sir!
Champs up, shooting shots.